right, we live, bro. It's a great day, sports world. What's up to all the sports lovers, the haters, the addicts, and the fanatics? This is Larry Patterson for GT365. This Game Time 365 Sports right here on the GTSN. It's the Game Time Sports Network. This is the first installment of a new partnership to the podcast. This will be the first episode. Got a good friend of mine, class 2006 graduate from Prince Edward County, Mr. Amon Washington. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Just blessed to be in another day of the living, man. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Glad to do this pod with you. We've been talking about this for a minute. I remember back in, I want to say it was some years ago when me and T Cooper had we was talking at Uptown Cafe, and I remember he brought your name up, and he brought some other people's names up, and then we end up texting. So we've been this has been talked about for a minute. It ain't like it's just brought up. We've been talking about this for a minute, so I'm glad to do this with you. You got a great sports mind, and want to see the people know more about you and your knowledge of the game. So, but we're gonna start with our AFC rivals. AFC West rivals. You a Raiders fan, longtime Raiders fan, might I add. I'm a Bronco fan. And we done had that rivalry over the years. For the past few years, y'all been getting the best of us. And this past year, we swept you. Glad to get that. But as far as your offseason moves, how would you grade the Raiders' offseason moves so far?
Man, I'd say my moves so far, if I give it on a scale of 1 to 10, I say about a 7 or 8. I mean, me coming in, being a big Antonio Pierce backer, and the Raiders. You know how Mark Davis is. He's impatient. You know what I'm saying? He want to put a winning product on the field. It's been since 2002 since we've had a good run. Ultimately we got destroyed by the Bucks, but ever since then it's been a struggle. Been through 11 head coaches, 15 GMs, so it's been a struggle. So, when the Gruden thing happened, it was kind of like that was another kick in the stomach. That's another reset, But then we got on the AP, and we thought we would have some promise, but of course, Mark being impatient, he wanted to move in another direction. So here we are with John Spytek, Pete Carroll, Tom Brady and company, and the owners coming in, buying and spending some money. So I mean, 8 out of 10 so far for me. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I like some of the signings that we had. Eric Stokes for depth. We got Lonnie Johnson for depth. We got we picked up what's homeboy name from Stephen Chargers. Lefto Fotu or something like that. I could be mispronouncing Lecky Fotu. I could be pronouncing his name. He's been around for a while. Just solid depth pieces all around. We all know that this is a rebuilding project, and Spatek coming over from Denver. I mean, not Denver, but yeah, he had ties in Denver back in 2013 when y'all went to the Super Bowl, and we all know what happened in Meadowlands. That was kind of rough, But he has a Denver background. He has a Bucks background. He's been on the Jason Light for the last couple years learning. So he drafted some players. Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield. So the pedigree is there, and plus Tristan Wirfs rookie year they won the Super Bowl, and that's just so happened they signed the greatest quarterback that ever walk the earth that year as well. So it's a little promising. Listening to some of the interviews and podcasts that he's been on talking about you want to get the best 53. Of course, each GM want the best 53, but in our circumstance and case, excuse me, which we're chasing you guys that made the playoffs last year. We're chasing the Chargers. They're going to be tough and well coached by Jim Harbaugh, and of course them guys in Arrowhead as well. So they're going to be a tough, but the draft is very important. I know our GM last year, he gave us 3 solid starters in DJ Glaze. Brock Boswell is an all-pro. We don't have to say no more about him. And Jackson Powers Johnson. There's 3 solid contributors early on. So That's all I'm looking for this year. And whatever we do, April 24th, I'm gonna be excited for it. So yeah,
All
that's a
right.
little bit about.
So, is there any question with Pete Carroll and how he went out of Seattle? Is there any question into like maybe the old style that he may possess and whatnot? Like, what are you looking forward to from Pete Carroll?
Pete Carroll, what I'm looking forward from Pete Carroll, I'm looking forward to that old school build a program because we all know, his first flame out with the NFL with the Jets, it didn't go his way. He didn't know, he was just going through the motions or whatever the case may be. But when he finally found his footing at USC, when he had Reggie Bush, Landell White, Matt Leinart, that whole core where it was unstoppable for that little stretch, and he took that on to the NFL with Seattle, and he's won a chip. He's been there. He's proven. He knows how to build a team. He brings everybody in the building to compete. Nobody's spot is safe, and that's literally, a testament to them signing Matt Flynn back in I think it was 2013, and then they ended
Yeah,
up drafted Russell Wilson in that round. And Pete did say, hey, the best man is going to win the job, and lo and behold, whoever thought Russell Wilson would win that job as a rookie in Seattle. So I'm looking forward to the competitiveness. Nobody's spot is safe. Of course, you got your mainstays. You got Wilkins, Max, Tyree, you know, yeah, we lost, Spillane, lost some key pieces, Morrig on the back end, but like I said, it's a fresh start for everybody. Everybody gets evaluated differently now. New regime in, and one thing I do trust with Pete that he's going to get the best out of all his players. So, do I have any concerns? Not necessarily a concern. Is that people ask, has the game passed him by? And I definitely don't believe that the game has passed him by. But looking at Geno Smith's press conference yesterday, he'll run through a wall for Pete. You know what I mean? Those were his words. And when you have your leader, the key position on the roster saying that says a lot about you as a coach and a lot about you as a person, most importantly.
facts. Because speaking of the Geno, he coming over from Seattle, and Pete only been removed from the game for a year. So uh, with Geno coming over, and I'm glad you did say something about everybody's spot is not, it's nothing in stone yet. And we'll jump into later on about a certain, a couple certain quarterbacks that could go number one. There's a chance that you guys could, trade, some assets to move up further. How do you feel about Geno being your quarterback right now?
Well, I'm excited for Geno being our quarterback, man. Because it's been a long time since we had a stable quarterback. No disrespect to Derek Carr. Once a Raider, always a Raider for sure. But he had a ceiling. He'll get you to so far. Yeah, he can get you to the playoffs, but we've never seen what he's done after the wild card round. Yeah, we had a run back in 2021 where we made the playoffs and we lost to Cincinnati in the wild card at the last minute. But they're always, having a quarterback, really since then. Wonder what we could really do if we really have that stabilizer in the middle of your offense. Everything goes through him. So us having some stability at that position. We went through O'Connell, we went through Hoyer, we went through Minshew. We're not even gonna talk about that Minshew experience. That's another whole episode in itself right there. But just having that stabilizer, not having a rotating door, rotating chair at that position, that's so exciting to me. That's like a breath of fresh air already for me as a Raiders fan. I'm sure for other Raiders fans across every platform of social media as well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Geno has definitely improved as is his time in being a starter, versus his early years and his years of being a backup. So it looked like he took that time as a backup to kind of like redefine himself. And I mean, he's playing at a high level right now. Going into a couple other one of your signings, y'all signed Max Crosby to an extension this past year. It's good to have one of your own locked up and going into the future. You also signed Darnay Holmes, as you stated earlier, depth pieces, which I think is really good too. Let's talk about the running back position, and I think that the run game for you guys let's face it, it really hasn't been a the strongest position on your team since Josh Jacobs left. And do you think that was a mistake? And how do you feel about your running back room right now?
Okay, I'm gonna answer the first part of your question about the Josh Jacobs thing. I'm gonna address that. It was a mistake for us to let Josh Jacobs go. In my humble opinion, I'm always pro player. Get your money. You know what I mean? And the Raiders, I think they had, if I'm not mistaken, I think they had 3 years, 30 million on the table for him. Don't quote me on those numbers, but that's what I read somewhere. 3 years, 30 million. And Green Bay, they did 4 years, 4 days. So that's an extra $2 million on top of that. And Green Bay historically they don't do guarantee after the first year. So pretty much it's a year to year deal with Josh Jacobs and Green Bay. And when Josh, decided to leave, I thought it was a good chance that he would stay. But like I said, I'm always pro player. Go get your money. When you have somebody else throwing the bag at you, hey, always go get your money. And right then and there, I knew once he got his contract in Green Bay that he was going to leave. But ultimately, in 2024, we did take a hit. I think we maybe average maybe a little less than 4 points yards a carry. I could be wrong on that stat, but it wasn't the league average for sure. Him splitting carries with Zamir White splitting carries with Josh Jacobs in 2023. I had a little hope for Zamir White, but sometimes we say new scheme, the coaches come in, what you were drafted for in certain scheme might not translate over to the next regime coming in. So he struggled with that a bit. Then we had Sincere McCormick come in, give us some good starting minutes at the end of the season last year, and then of course we have Dylan Lobby, a rookie that we drafted in the seventh round last year. He gave us some special teams depth, but nothing really, you know, live bullet game wise. So I mean, running back position, I'm definitely looking forward to what's going to happen here in 2 weeks. There's a guy supposedly ran for 100 yards up in Boise State, so that's the buzz going around town right now. So April 6th, around 9 o'clock, we'll figure out what the Raiders really think about the running back position going forward.
And y'all, one of those teams, you sit in a good spot. You number 6 right now, right? You got the 6th pick, and you literally can go anywhere you want to. You can trade up, you can trade back. I mean, we talk all the time, so we discuss this. You can go different positions. What pick? Well, who is the Raiders picking at number 6 on draft night?
Who are the Raiders picking at number 6 on draft night? That's an interesting question, Larry. But my question to you is, are we going to be picking at number 6 on draft night? That's my question. Are we going to be picking at number 6?
And that's the thing with y'all has so much flexibility where you can like I said, you can do whatever you want. So we'll find out what you guys do on in the first round on draft night. Let's go
But
to
but
your
let me add something to that number 6 pick. Like I said before we move on, there's a couple people you already know who I got in mind. You already know who I want. My numero uno. But of course, Travis Hunter. That's my number one guy I want. But there's a bucket. Travis in a bucket of his own. Then you have Genty, Will Johnson. Mason Graham. Abdul Carter if he stays there. I mean, if he slips to 6, Mimbu, anything to show up that the trenches in the front line. So that little bucket of players, that's who I'll be most interested in on April 24th.
all right. So we're gonna go into your arch rivals, the Denver Broncos. We had a 10-7 season. We wasn't projected to go to the playoffs. And then we drafted a guy 12th overall, Bo Nix. And like last year, we were talking about this draft night, and you were talking about Bo Nix, the criticism of him being, pick number 12. But there was so much that we talked about that day where if he was like the 6th pick, the 6th quarterback pick, right?
Correct.
The 6th quarterback pick. And everybody's talking about like how like you were a 6th quarterback pick and then what's your performance going to be like. I mean, people can look at the tape and they can make all these projections all you want to, but then like the games got to be played in September through January. So all that remains to be seen. I'm glad we are going into the off season not having an answer for quarterback. Like who is our quarterback going to be? I'm glad we don't have to answer that question. But I'm gonna tell you what, adding guys like Talanoa Hufanga and uh, Drake Greenlaw from the 49ers. Supposedly the 49ers had an offer for Drake Greenlaw, but he just ultimately decided to come to Denver. I like the moves. It adds more physicality to a defense that was already physical, but that was slipping toward the end of the season. What do you feel about the additions that Denver added with Drake Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga?
Well, the pieces that Denver added with Hufanga and Greenlaw. We were lurking over Greenlaw for a little bit, so I'm kind of a
Yeah,
little jealous that y'all ponied up a little extra cash to get Greenlaw in that orange crush or whatever color you want to call it. It's disgusting, whatever color. But yeah, man, I do like the additions that you guys have over there, especially on defense. You know what I mean, especially in the AFC West with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Geno Smith, Brock Bowers. There's a little firepower out there. We can't forget about Travis Kelsey. Our division has probably the number one and two tight end in the league. And you
yeah,
can each Sunday you can pick who's number one, who's number two. It just depends on what game you turn on. One of them tight ends gonna dominate. But yeah, absolutely, man. Like I like Bo Nix. I like some of the moves that you guys made. Sean Payton coming in from New Orleans. So he had success with Drew Brees, and and he definitely want to replicate their success with Sean Payton. And do I want it to be on our dime when we play 2 Sundays out of the year? Absolutely not. But yeah, man, like Bo Nix, he has experience as a starter. He's been in college from Auburn. I remember his Auburn days when people in Auburn didn't even want him to be on the field anymore. They was calling for the backup. And
right.
the transfer portal happened, NIL started kicking in, and you go to a system with can't think. I think Cristobal was the coach at the time. I could be wrong, but I know Cristobal's in Miami right now. But don't quote me on the coach that was there when he first got to Oregon. But Oregon always had talented players. LaMichael James, DeAnthony Thomas back in the day. So there's a lineage of good players. And Bo Nix just being one of the next one. So he got good coaching. Like I said, experience over 60 some starts in college, 60 some starts. What coach gonna turn that down? So him coming in with Sean Payton, that was his guy from day one. I just had a feeling that was his guy. So you got Cortland Sutton around them. You got you lost Javante Williams to the Cowboys. That's gonna take a ding in the backfield for you guys. I think this year coming up for you guys to take the next step, get some more weapons for Bo Nix for sure. There's a guy in Michigan right now that's been projected to you guys. Colston Loveland. I would hate to see it. I would hate to see it, but I'd like that fit for you guys. Um, Heck, I even heard Omarion Hampton could be somebody y'all might entertain in the first round. You know, Genty, if he make it to 20, but he probably won't. So I mean, that's a couple options for you guys. He probably be in silver and black by the time y'all pick it anyway. So
That's one thing I'm afraid of, that he'll end up in the silver and black. But but with a running back class so loaded, you know, it's like, okay, we can afford to look past that. And even if we had to jump up that high anyway, it was either a player and a bunch of picks that was going to be a part of that package, and that's something that we don't want right now. I do agree that Evan Ingram, I feel like Sean Payton was always talking about this joker. I don't feel like he's going to be that guy. I feel like it's some packages that they can put him in that his most successful season was in Jacksonville, with a quarterback that can actually throw the ball. So Bo Nix, he had some slippage. I mean, he's a rookie, so
he
he had
rookie,
slippage.
right?
Right. But he showed some great things as a rookie as well. Getting his team to the playoffs, and a team that hadn't seen the playoffs in like what 8-9 years or so. So definitely some improvement, and definitely some big things I can see going forward. And we know with Evan Ingram there, an actual tight end that can, you know, give Bo Nix that weapon on third and shorts or whatever. Um, but I see that, and I also there's a number of guys. And one thing I hate about the draft and the lead up to the draft because it's so far in April and you know the season ends in February, so you got like what 2 months to get ready for 2 or 3 months to get ready for the draft. There's so many players that you want, so I'm looking at guys like Emeka Ibuka, you know, a Tyler Warren, even though he won't even fall, probably won't fall to us unless we move up. But as I said, we're gonna have to give up something, and who wants to do that? We could also move back, so that's what I like about the flexibility of both of our teams of what we're able to do, even with you sitting at 6 and us sitting back at 20. George Payton kind of likes to move back. Sean Payton is more of a, hey, I'm aggressive and I want to go get my guy. And we'll figure out who that guy is coming up in a couple weeks here. Um, so our next topic we're gonna go to is the thoughts about the Colorado Pro Day, and I know that it was last week, but you know it's old. You know a lot of people probably saw it already. We're gonna jump into how your thoughts were about the Pro Day.
I mean, you know me, man. We were talking throughout the whole showcase, last week when it was going on. I mean, I think it's a good. Let me back up for a minute. I think it's a good thing for the program itself. I think it's a good thing for Coach Prime what he's trying to do with these kids. He's trying to get all these kids to the next level because everybody knows when you go to Colorado or heck even at Jackson State, when Coach Prime was there, your goal was to get to the next level as possible, quickly as possible and with the right, coaching. And if you look at, Colorado's coaching staff, I think Champ Bailey got added to the coaching staff this year. Warren Sapp is there already. And, so you got Pat Sherman, who's a OC in the league, that's been studying keeping Shador up going. So, I don't think it'll be an issue for Shador to translate to the league because he's had the NFL coaching. But the pro day, all 32 teams were in attendance. It's the spotlight, it's prime time. The meat is going to be there. Yeah, everybody want to see Shador, everybody want to see Travis, rightfully so. But me, it's the other guys as well, the LeJohntay Westers, the was it Jimmy Horn Junior, all the other
Mm-hmm.
guys, the guys that don't they're how we call it, the glue guys to the team, the guys that don't get the recognition on, throughout the week, Saturday as well, but that can make a roster and be your third or fourth wide receiver, or whatever the case may be. But everybody came for Shador and Travis, and I think Shador, excuse me, threw the ball really well. I was impressed with his deep ball. I know there was a big issue with everybody, saying that he patting the ball before delivery. I don't think that's a big deal because,
They're always gonna find something, ain't
they're
it?
always going to find something. In the Twitterverse, they're going to try to pick out everything that they can to discredit whatever he's doing. But Tom Brady, he patted the ball. Brett Favre patted the ball. Peyton Manning patted the ball. Everybody passed the ball, but that's no indication that you're going to release the ball right then and there. But that, like I said, Shador's going to be Shador. He's fine. He's shown that he's worth the first round grade. I mean, a first round draft pick. Sorry, I know the grades for him are all over the board. Some people have, mid first. Some people have late first, early second. But just as good as I do, Larry, that in this league that we love so much, quarterbacks get valued and get pushed up the board very high. Um, Now Travis, on the other hand, I got a little twinkle in my eye when Travis broke out because that's who I wanted silver and black more than anything. But
It was that footwork on it.
oh, it looked like a route I could do at a cookout out there outside. But you know what I mean. But is he's so twitched up. It. I was watching his feet. And he's twitched up, man. The way he can change direction, move from this point to this point, it's like this is rare stuff. You hear about everybody say this is a rare athlete. Until you actually see him, you're like, okay, cool. But when he put it in motion and he's going on the field, offense and defense, and think about this later. This is the thing with Travis that people, don't understand. I know we talked about it. Um, he don't have no time to come to the sideline and
look at tape or look at the plays. Hey, what's going on when you're playing both sides of the ball, and to be that gifted and that talented to take that much information in and translate that and not have no time to come to the sideline and sit down beside me. Hey, this is what happened this last series. He has to always be on the go. So I think he's a rare human, But my only drawback, and I've said this in the past, if he get hurt and you want him to go both ways, you got to fill two spots. You got to fill depth at corner and you got to fill depth at wide receiver. But when he's going and he's on the field, you have a starting corner and you got a starting wide receiver as well. And I think most of the league is leaning towards him playing corner with the wide receiver packages. I've rarely heard the opposite, him playing wide receiver with corner packages. But he's just a special individual, and whatever team gets him in the top five, whether it's Cleveland, Giants. Heck, I wouldn't even rule out the Titans for all that because they said, hey, we're taking a generational player, and how many generational players are in the top five that you're going to take this year coming up? So, like I said, back to the pro day. It was a showcase for sure. I wouldn't say pro day as a showcase as Colorado has said it was, but yeah, everybody, whatever information you may had or had concerns about at that showcase, your questions definitely got answered for sure.
One of my concerns about Travis transitioning to the NFL, and like you said, he's playing wide receiver and he don't have time to, see tape or, get coaching on, what he did wrong or, whatever. You got to go back out in the field, play defense. Wonder, the pro is a different game. So I know that he won't have that same kind of production. But as Deion Sanders said in a it was the interview after the pro day, one thing he did point out that Travis could play mostly receiver, and then you put him in some packages at cornerback. And one thing he said was, if your corner over there getting beat, you you're gonna have to look somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So I think it's going to be something that the NFL hasn't seen in a while. Was since Dion, with Travis, starting out playing wide receiver and then playing, cornerback. I think it's something that could be done, and he's going to let him know if he's fatigued, if he gets tired. I just think it can be done. I just think more people just think about it bigger
Right.
than what it is. As far as Shador I think Shador looked good. His deep ball, the short, the middle, the intermediate throws. Like I thought he did good. The rollouts, I thought he did really well. And one thing that he did, and this is why I like Shador, he not only, he knew that they would Travis and him were going to be looked at, but the other guys, because he knew that all 32 teams were
Yes.
going to be there.
Yes.
The other guys like the Horns and the other guys that you named, you know, they may not be that high of a draft pick, but there's a team that could take them in the fifth, the sixth, undrafted. You
Yes.
know, they can get those opportunities as well too. So that's one thing I did like what that he said, and that extends his character, and why the hate is there. If he
Oh yeah.
wasn't if he wasn't a Sanders, I feel like he would be talked about going high, and there wouldn't be so much nitpicking about him. But is there a chance that Tennessee is? I think it's probably already called that they wouldn't even. They're not even. I think they canceled his workout or whatever.
Correct.
Um, is there a chance that another team could kind of like come up and say, hey, Shador, we're trading up, and then they draft Shador? Is there a chance that he could go number one?
Um, with this league, man, this league is so funny, man. Because like, I'm not gonna say that there's no chance because heck, who in the heck saw the Atlanta Falcons giving Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed last offseason, then drafted Michael Penix at 8? No, nobody saw that coming. So, am I gonna say it's not not a chance that he go number one? It's very good possible that he could go number one overall. It's just with the Titans brass what they're comfortable in. Are they comfortable with Shador and whatever comes with Shador? We already know what that is, fairly or unfairly. It's just what his last name is. Or are you comfortable taking the steady Eddie, clean Cam Ward? So yeah, there's a chance that on draft night, they call Shador's name number one overall. But them canceling the private workouts and all that, good stuff. They could like what they seen from Shador and say, okay, I done seen enough. This is our guy. Or okay, all right, we seen Shador in person. Let's go nail down Cam Ward and just make a final decision and let him be our number one overall pick in 2025. So
Speaking of the number one pick conversation, who will be the number one pick in the 2025 NFL draft?
if I was a bet man, I had to put money on the books. I'm gonna say Cam Ward, only because he everybody's raved about him. He has the process was clean. He's a competitor. Coming from, you know, no, I think it was no offers out of high school, then going to Incarnate Word, then Washington State, then Miami. You've been through you know all levels of football, and will Miami to 10 wins. This year could have made the playoffs if there wasn't a couple slip ups versus Georgia Tech. You could actually be a playoff team. So I think Cam Ward is a safe pick right now. So if I had money betting on myself or anything else, it'll definitely be Cam Ward for me. What about you?
Well, I'm gonna say this about Cam Ward. It was crazy that I just found out the other day that he averaged like 94 yards throwing the ball in high school. So
Yes.
he had to been that running dude, like just
Yeah, he
straight.
was that dual threat for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the thing with me. So I feel like it could be Cam Ward, but as we were talking yesterday, the Tennessee Titans they have the case for that because Brian Callahan he's coming. This is what this will be his second season, I believe. Yeah, this will be his
Second,
second
yes.
season. Yeah, yeah. So you went into the season with Will Levis. Now Will Levis showed me he showed me flashes like his first year, and then I'm like, well, maybe Brian Callahan can run it back. But then I'm like, well, Will Levis is not really Brian Callahan's guy. So Brian Callahan also has a job to maintain as well. And if Cam Ward is his guy, then he's got to go get his guy. Also, Rand Carthon got fired.
Yeah.
And now you got the old Chiefs assistant GM, I believe, play the front office role over there. I can't think of his name right now,
Yeah, he is a weird name, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
but recognize the winning tradition that they had over there. He gonna want his guy as well.
100%.
So I feel like it could be Cam Ward as well, but I'm also looking at like Abdul Carter. Man, that's a freak, dude. I mean, the way he can help and run support, the way he can set the edge, is everything about him that says like, hey, you can be the number one guy.
Absolutely.
And Travis Hunter, he's got his case too. But I'm gonna go with Cam Ward simply because Titans. I mean, I don't think they would be stupid to move out of that spot, and to you got a chance to grab your quarterback of the future. You think about it, if you miss out on this opportunity, like what other quarterback is going to be there later on?
Or let's
You
say, if you don't take a quarterback, you're not guaranteed to be here in 2026 picking in number one or two. So grab your guy when you can. You know what I mean?
yeah, and then the quarterback class next year, you got Arch Manning and a couple other guys, coming out as well. But hey, if you got a chance to get your guy right now, don't miss out on that opportunity and be going in the season with Will Levis again.
Right,
So
right. And then like I said, we talking about get your guy while you can right now. Get Cam now, grab him because like I said, who says you're going to be back in here at 2026 with top 3 pick. And plus, we all know, college with this NIL money, a kid can say, you know what, I'd rather stay in school and get this. What
Mm,
Quinn got off? Quinn, I think reported Quinn got offered 9-10 million from Notre Dame to stay.
that's crazy.
All right, so do I want to? I can make more in college than I would be my first 2 years, 3 years, maybe in the league. So, but you won't have the experience of being in the National Football League, getting those live reps against grown men. So it's a catch-22 with with staying and going. But yeah, like you said back to Cam Ward, take your guy while you're there.
Uh, I'm looking at a guy like I was talking about Abdul Carter, 12 sacks, 24 tackles for a loss, and you could just look at the tape of everything else. Man, he's just so raw. If Cleveland takes him, and then you got Myles Garrett on the other side, imagine how that's going to look, man.
It could be really scary. Don't get me wrong. That pass rush can be really, really scary, really, really early. Then you have like the secondary to back that. You got Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome. What's the other guy name that's back there with them? I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank. Grant Delpit. Sorry.
Right
You
there, yeah,
know,
yeah. And they
is
got
drawing a
JOK too.
JOK back there, but JOK has like a health issue, so I don't know if his 2025 season's up in the air. So, you know, but like you said, it's scary, but you have that pass rush. The pass rush is there, right? And we all know how for Cleveland. We'll talk about Cleveland here for them. With Abdul Carter, but you got Carter, but you got Watson on a disastrous contract. You have every position answered except for the numero uno position. So that's why I was like, okay, yeah, Carter's nice, but if Shador is sitting you right there in the face at number 2, is Jimmy Haslam gonna have the gumption and Andrew Berry gonna have the gumption to pull a trigger to please this Cleveland fan base? Because Haslam even came out and said himself that he swung, took a big gamble, swung and he missed, and that's okay if as an owner coming out and say that you want to try to get that position secure because and I'm going off on a tangent here, but Watson had some amazing years at Houston before he left and went to Cleveland. Yes, he had a little scandal, whatever the case may be, but they was locking down the AFC South. No, want nobody getting through there. It was them or nobody. You know what I mean?
Facts.
So yeah, and then the trade came through. You gave the 3 first-round picks, yada yada yada, whatever the case may be, and he got hurt. Achilles. You can't. Injuries are part of the game. You can't control that. It's unfortunate, but ever since then, Cleveland, that fan base has been, pissed and like, yo, we need to get this thing right. So that's the question. Abdul Carter, like you said, at 12 sacks versus Shador Sanders, that position could be potentially solved. So that's a good question, Larry. I like that.
And when you were talking about Cleveland and why we on the topic of them, like it's crazy how they went from Baker Mayfield. I feel like they went away from Baker Mayfield a little too quick, and then you see him now. I know he went through 2 other teams with Carolina and the Rams, but then you see him now, taking Tampa Bay to 2 straight playoff appearances. It's like, did you give up on him a little too quick? I know the NFL has a quarterback development issue, but you move away from him, and then there's some rocky seasons in there. He's trying to find his way back. He leads the team back to the playoffs 2 years in a row, and now you still on a quarterback circuit after giving record money to another quarterback, and he can't give you the same production. That there's something happened. I don't know what happened, but
Right.
from being away from the game 2 years, you got to be still training somewhere. I know it's a difference between that and live action, but when you're looking at a roster that has Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson on there, um, what hope are you giving your fan base for the 2025 season?
Right. I mean, it's like no hope, bro. Like, are you gonna roll out Kenny Pickett? My season ticket holders ain't signed up for this. So when that email come through and you talking about something, you starting Kenny Pickett? Oh no, let me get my let me go ahead and cancel my these sweets and stuff I bought. No, let me get that money back. No, you're not rolling up Kenny Pickett. You just want to give the fan base some hope. And I don't know if the speaking of the Browns, I don't know if they want to put that off another year. Like I say with Tennessee, like we said with Tennessee, who says you're going to be picking in the top 5, top 10 again next year. So get your guy while he's there, and that's the thing.
But we also know the Browns are the Browns, and
Absolutely.
there's some talks about Kirk Cousins and a trade situation with him.
Right.
Don't know how official that is, or if that even coming true. But they do tend to do crazy things instead of getting your guy with Shador. You got receivers over there, but hey, I can see them definitely with a roster the way that they do. All you need is really a quarterback and a couple other pieces.
Yeah.
They not off. They're not far off. But like you said, if you going into the season and you got Kenny Pickett on the docket as your starting quarterback, like I'm selling my season tickets. I don't want to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, man. Who want to sit out there in the middle of November, -2 degree weather? You got Kenny Pickett throwing the ball. Man. Ain't nobody want to sit out there getting cold, frostbite on your hands and stuff. Don't nobody want to see that, man. I mean, it's just the reality of the game.
And I would hate that for Shador because you're gonna have to, if you're gonna draft him, you're gonna have to put a security blanket around him. I mean, I'm not saying that the security blanket is got to be in like 100% like perfect, but you got to have some kind of strategy, or as you say, structure. You got to have something going in order for that to happen. I mean, you had to tell Myles Garrett something in order for him to sign a record deal to
Absolutely,
come back there. So the next episode we'll come with our own mock draft and we'll go through a couple position rankings and everything right like that. This has been great, man. You got any
yeah,
final thoughts?
man. Final thoughts, man. It's just look, I'm just excited for this year. Excited what magic we gonna make. Just talking, having dialogue on a weekly basis, shooting ideas off each other, talking sports, doing what we do. I'm looking forward to the Raider season. The draft. You know, free agency after the draft because really you feel other little spots after the draft. You get your guys that you pay priority free agents. People that you probably wanted to draft but you couldn't draft because you had this guy a little higher than this guy on your board. So I'm looking to after the dust settle in April, the weekend of April 24th. See how better every team's going to be a better football team after that weekend. You just want to see where you stack up versus your division first, and then everybody else in the league. So it's like for me and you, it's like Christmas for us. Almost it's like
Yes.
Christmas in April all over again, especially for me. So I'm just excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks and how camp and how the offseason going to play out, and see what vets get signed where and who pretenders on paper, on paper, who champs on paper. Every time we got paper champs every offseason. That's like that Philadelphia Eagles team when they had Vince Young, Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, Sean McCoy. It was,
Super
oh man,
team.
they the super team, and I don't think they even made the playoffs that year. So I mean, I'm excited, man. What about you, bro?
Man, I'm excited. I'm ready to get it over with. Ready for us to select who we gonna select. You know how that process is every year, man. We talk every day and talk about who we want, but we don't know until that actually happens. So don't forget the schedule release is like a couple weeks right after that. So this like you said is Christmas to us. It's like the holiday season, and then we're going to another dead period before like the OTAs and then the training camps a little later on down the line. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see wondering who we're gonna draft, and then don't forget about those round 5, 6, 7 undrafted guys, undrafted gems. I like to call them because you're gonna have them, at least one or two of them on your roster every year. So um, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that and looking forward to more of our talk on a weekly basis or daily basis, however we're gonna do it. But either way, we're gonna bring it to you. Once again, on behalf of my man Amon and Larry Patterson, we coming back and
Oh yeah, we be back.
until then.